The door opened, and Marcus Hale, a man who had stared down boardrooms, hostile takeovers, and the quiet devastation of a terminal diagnosis without blinking, stopped breathing. She was standing in the doorway of a house that should have been a hollow shell. The porch light caught the silver threading through her dark hair. Her eyes were the same, still that deep, impossible brown he'd spent 20 years trying to forget. Her hands were wrapped around a ceramic mug like it was an anchor. She wasn't a ghost. She was real. "Elena," Marcus whispered. The mug didn't shake. Her voice didn't crack. She just looked at him, the way you look at something inevitable. "Marcus." That was all she said. Just his name. And somehow that single word carried everything, 22 years of grief, fury, survival, and the particular exhaustion of a woman who had already made her peace. Behind her, footsteps descended the staircase.
A friend of the house.
Heavy. Deliberate. A young man appeared at the end of the hallway, and Marcus's chest cracked open, because the boy had his jaw, his height, his posture. But his eyes? His eyes were all Elena. Watchful. Quiet. Dangerous. The young man looked at Marcus the way you look at something you've studied for years but never quite believed you'd see face to face. "Mom," he said quietly. His voice was controlled. Too controlled. "Step back." Elena didn't move. "Daniel."
You have
"Step
to
back,
listen.
please."
Stay away from her.
Marcus raised
is
both
bigger than
hands
you.
slowly, like a man approaching a wounded animal. His voice came out rougher than he intended. "I'm not here to cause trouble. He stopped. Swallowed. "I thought this place was empty. I just wanted to see it one last time." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "One last time?" Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. "I'm dying," Marcus said.
Listen to me very
No drama.
What happens next?
No
cannot be
performance.
done. Choose
Just the
wisely.
flat, bare truth of it, delivered in the voice of a man who'd already sat with those words long enough to stop being afraid of them. Daniel's expression didn't change. Not one flicker. "I know," he said. Marcus stared at him. "How could you possibly? Come inside." Elena's voice cut through both of them. Firm. Final. "It's cold." The living room looked nothing like Marcus remembered. The last time he'd stood in this house, it was a wreck, peeling wallpaper, a cracked ceiling, furniture that smelled like an argument waiting to happen. Now it was warm. Lived in. Bookshelves covered an entire wall, crammed with paperbacks and framed photographs. A fire crackled low in the grate. A half-finished puzzle sat on the coffee table, the kind you work on over weeks, returning to it each evening. Someone built a life here, Marcus
You have
thought.
to tell me the truth.
I walked away from it.
I need to know.
He sat across from them,
You deserve
mother
that
and
much.
son on the sofa, him in an armchair that somehow felt like a witness stand. The fire popped. Outside, the wind moved through the old oak trees he'd planted in another lifetime. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on Marcus like a man reading a document for evidence. "You want to know how I knew about the diagnosis," Daniel said. It wasn't a question. "It's not public," Marcus said carefully. "Not even my board knows. Your CFO does." Daniel paused. "He talks to his brother. His brother golfs with a man who used to work for me." Another pause. Deliberate. Letting it land. "I've had a network around your company for 4 years, Marcus. I know everything that happens inside it, sometimes before you do." The fire crackled. Marcus looked at his son, and felt a cold recognition settle over him. "You're Elena Holdings," Marcus said slowly. The silence confirmed it before Daniel said a word. "Back up," the narrator says gently. "Because to understand what just happened, you need to understand what Marcus Hale did 22 years ago. Not the polished version he tells at charity dinners. The real version. The one Elena lived. Marcus married Elena at 28. She was 25. He was hungry and brilliant and completely convinced that love was something you earned after the work was done. He built his first company in the spare bedroom of this very house while Elena worked double shifts at the hospital, came home exhausted, and still managed to keep the lights on. When the money came, and it came fast, Marcus didn't stop working. He accelerated. Because that's what hunger does when it's never really satisfied. It just finds bigger things to consume. Elena tried to hold on. She held on through cancelled dinners, through business trips that lasted weeks, through the long silences where Marcus sat at his desk and she sat on the other side of a wall and the distance between them measured in more than feet. When Daniel was born, she thought a child might crack something open in him. It didn't. Marcus held his son exactly once in the hospital, a brief, uncertain moment, the baby squirming in his arms like a secret he didn't know what to do with, and then his phone rang. He handed Daniel back to Elena, stepped into the hallway, and took the call. She never forgot the sound of the door clicking shut. 3 years later, he left. A Wednesday morning. He packed a bag while Daniel slept, set his key on the kitchen counter, and walked to the car without looking back at the house. He didn't fight for custody. He barely fought for anything. His lawyers handled the dissolution with the same cold efficiency they handled everything else. Elena got the house, which had a leaking roof and a mortgage Marcus had stopped paying 6 months prior. She got almost nothing else. And then, the fire. 6 weeks after Marcus left, she called his office. His assistant said he was unavailable. She tried 4 more times over 3 days. He never called back. When his lawyer finally rang, it was to inform him that Elena had died in a house fire. That Daniel was gone too. That there were no remains to recover. He signed the paperwork. He attended no funeral. He kept the worn photograph because it was the last thing that felt real. And he went back to building his empire. He never asked a single question. "You want the truth?" Elena said. Her voice was quiet but her eyes were not. She set her mug down on the table with a soft, precise click, the sound of a woman who had rehearsed this moment in her mind so many times she'd worn it smooth. "I faked it," she said.
I'm scared.
"All of it." Marcus opened his mouth. "Don't," she said. "Don't react yet. Just listen." She told him everything. In the weeks after he left, she'd reached out to his office 11 times. 11. She'd kept a log, dates, times, the names of the assistants who took her calls with polite voices and zero intention of relaying anything. Daniel was 3 years old and asking every night where his daddy was, and she was exhausted and broke and alone in a house that was falling apart around her. "I had one friend," Elena said. Her name was Patricia. She worked in insurance, had for 15 years. And one night I was sitting here on this floor, she gestured at the worn hardwood beneath the rug, with Daniel asleep on my chest and bills I couldn't pay spread out in front of me, and she asked me what I had left. She paused. "I had this house, which your lawyers had valued at almost nothing because of the state it was in. And I had one policy, a small one, that you'd set up when Daniel was born and then forgot about. It was in both our names." Her jaw tightened. "You never cancelled it. I assume because you forgot I existed." The fire popped. "Patricia knew a man," Elena continued. "He handled disappearances. Not violently, nothing like that. Paperwork. Records. A controlled burn in the garage that looked worse than it was. A death certificate that passed every check because the right people signed it." She met his eyes. "I took Daniel, I took $32,000 from that policy, and I disappeared." Marcus's voice came out in a scrape. "You came back here?
The danger is
Where
real,
else was
and
I
it's
going to
coming
go?"
for us. We must
For the
act
first
now.
time, something cracked in her composure, just a hairline fracture, gone almost before it appeared. "This was the only thing I had. This house. Your lawyers valued it at nothing. Nobody wanted it. I knew you'd never come back for it. A pause. I was right. For 22 years, I was right. Daniel stood by the window, arms crossed, watching Marcus the way you watch someone to see if they're going to do the thing you've been expecting them to do. Say something, Daniel said. You look like you're calculating. I'm not calculating, Marcus said tightly. Really? Because that's the face. I've seen pictures. He tilted his head. You pull that face right before you decide something costs too much. Daniel. Elena's voice held a warning. No, I want to hear it. Daniel pushed off the wall and walked to the center of the room. He was the same height as Marcus. Same build. Standing here, facing each other, the resemblance was almost cruel. What's the calculation, Marcus? You're dying, you came back here expecting a ghost, and instead you found a problem. So what do you do with us? What's the play? There's no play, Marcus said. I'm not here to take anything. That's a new strategy. Daniel's voice was smooth, razor-edged. Usually you leave and then take everything. The words landed like a slap. Marcus said nothing. Because there was nothing to say to the truth. If you are feeling what Marcus is feeling right now, that sick, hollow recognition of a life you cannot undo, then you are exactly where this story needs you. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because what Daniel is about to reveal in the next few minutes will change everything you think you know about this family. Don't you dare click away. Daniel walked to the bookshelf. Pulled out a manila folder, thick, dog-eared, the kind that has been opened and closed hundreds of times. He set it on the coffee table in front of Marcus with a flat, practiced motion. Open it, he said. Marcus hesitated. Then reached forward. Inside, spreadsheets. Acquisition records. Legal filings. Property purchase agreements going back 7 years. At the top of each document, in clean letterhead, Elena Holdings. Marcus had been trying to identify Elena Holdings for 2 years. His CFO had called it a ghost, an anonymous entity that kept appearing at the margins of deals Marcus was pursuing, outmaneuvering him on real estate acquisitions, poaching key contracts, quietly positioning itself to control supply chains that Marcus depended on. It wasn't hostile enough to call an attack. It was more surgical than that. More patient. Like someone who had spent years learning exactly how Marcus Hale operated because they'd been watching him their entire life. You're 25 years old, Marcus said. His voice was barely above a whisper. 25 and 8 months, Daniel said. I started Elena at 23. Mom didn't know for the first year. He glanced at Elena, something softening briefly across his face before it hardened again. When she found out, she told me to stop. I told him it wasn't worth it, Elena said quietly. I didn't stop, Daniel said. I just got better at not worrying her. Marcus set the folder down. His hands, he noticed with distant surprise, were trembling slightly. Not from fear. From something much harder to name. Why? He asked. What were you trying to accomplish? Daniel looked at him for a long moment. The fire crackled. The wind moved the oak trees outside. I wanted you to feel it, Daniel said. The thing you never felt when you left us. I wanted you to stand inside something you'd built and watch it quietly come apart and not know why. His voice didn't rise. That was the most devastating thing about it, the complete, absolute control. I wanted you to feel helpless. The words sat in the air between them. Helpless. Marcus closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. He didn't bother hiding it. I was, he said. I am. His voice dropped to almost nothing. I have been, for 22 years. I just didn't have a name for it until now. The room was completely silent. Elena looked at Marcus, really looked at him, for the first time since he'd walked through the door. Not with hatred. Not with forgiveness. With something more complicated and more human than either. The look of a woman who'd made her peace, watching a man who hadn't. Daniel turned back to the window. His jaw was tight. His hands, crossed over his chest, were clenched into fists. He's fighting it, the narrator observes quietly. Whatever he feels when he looks at his father, he's been fighting it for 25 years. And tonight it's getting harder. That night, Elena made dinner. Not as a peace offering. Not as forgiveness. As a matter of simple, stubborn practicality, it was late, there was food, and she'd long since stopped making decisions based on anyone else's comfort, including her own. 3 plates. 3 chairs. The kitchen table where she and Daniel ate every night, where she'd helped him with homework and watched him grow from a solemn, quiet child into a solemn, formidable man. Marcus sat in a chair that hadn't been meant for him, and he ate in silence. At first, the conversation was nothing. Passing the salt. The sound of cutlery. Daniel staring at his plate with the focused intensity of a man determined not to acknowledge the person across from him. Then Marcus asked, quietly, without agenda, what made you choose real estate as the entry point? Daniel's fork paused. Low capital requirement, high leverage potential, and the assets are visible, Daniel said flatly. You can touch them. You can see exactly what you own. I started the same way, Marcus said. I know. Daniel's eyes finally came up. I studied everything you did. Every deal, every mistake, every early pivot. I read every interview you ever gave. His voice stayed level, but something moved underneath it like a current. I had to understand how you thought. To beat you. And did you? Marcus asked. Understand how I think? A long pause. Yes, Daniel said. Then, quieter, that's the part one hate the most. The table went still. Elena set her fork down. Outside, rain had started, a slow, rhythmic sound against the kitchen window. The light above them was warm and gold, and everything about the scene was achingly domestic. A father and son talking across a table for the first time in their lives, and the thing tightening in Marcus's chest was not his illness. It was grief. Pure, clean, 22 years of accumulated grief that had nowhere to go. I was going to come back, Marcus said. The words came out before he could stop them. Daniel went very still. Elena, when Daniel was about 2, I told myself, after this deal, after this year, after this target, then I'll come back and I'll be present. I'll be a real husband. A real father. Marcus's voice cracked on the last word. His jaw tightened. I kept moving the finish line. I thought there would be time. I thought there was always going to be time. Daniel stared at him. And then you called the office, Marcus said, looking at Elena. 11 times. I didn't know, I swear to you, I didn't know about the calls until years later. My assistant at the time, his voice hardened briefly. She filtered everything she thought might complicate ongoing negotiations. By the time I found out what she'd done, he stopped. You were gone. Elena's face was completely still. Do you want me to feel sorry for you? She asked. No, Marcus said immediately. I want you to know the whole truth. You deserve the whole truth. What I deserved, Elena said softly, was a husband who picked up the phone himself. The silence that followed was not angry. It was something much heavier, the silence of an argument that had already been won, long ago, by time. What Marcus is about to find out in the next 60 seconds, it's going to shatter everything. Hit subscribe right now, because part 2 of this story drops soon and you will not want to miss what Daniel does next. This family's story is nowhere near over. After dinner, Daniel disappeared upstairs. Marcus helped Elena clear the table, a small, awkward thing, both of them moving around the kitchen in the careful choreography of people who have never shared this particular space. He found himself watching her hands. The efficiency of them. The quiet competence. "He's brilliant," Marcus said. Elena handed him a dish to dry. "I know. He outmaneuvered me in 3 separate markets. Simultaneously." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I have an entire team of analysts who couldn't figure out how they were doing it." "He worked 16-hour days for 2 years straight," Elena said, without pride or apology. "Just fact. He missed every holiday. He barely slept." She paused. "Sound familiar?" The dish in Marcus's hands felt very heavy. "Elena." "I'm not angry anymore," she said quietly. She wasn't looking at him, focused on the running water. "I was. For years, I was so angry it was like carrying fire. But anger that long," she turned off the tap, "eventually it just burns itself out. What's left is just life. My life. Mine and Daniel's." "Is that enough?" Marcus asked. Did you have happiness?" She looked at him. A small smile crossed her face, not warm, but real. "Yes. More than you'd expect. More than I expected." She dried her hands on a towel. "I taught school for 12 years. I watched kids learn to read. I had Patricia for a best friend and a garden that fights me every spring and a son who is equal parts infuriating and extraordinary." She folded the towel. "I had a good life, Marcus. In spite of you. Not because of you. That's the part you need to understand." Marcus nodded. He could not speak. He found Daniel on the back porch at 11 o'clock. No lights. Just the dark countryside and the rain slowing to a drizzle, and Daniel standing with his hands in his jacket pockets, looking out at the old oak trees. Marcus stood beside him. Didn't say anything for a long moment. "I have something to tell you," Marcus finally said. "And I need you to hear it without deciding how to use it first." Daniel's eyes slid sideways. "Suspicious. Go on." Marcus reached into his jacket and produced a document, folded, creased, official. He held it out. Daniel took it. Unfolded it slowly. "Read." The rain dripped from the porch roof. The old trees moved. Somewhere down the road, a dog barked twice and went quiet. Daniel's face, that carefully controlled, fortress face, went completely still. Then his breath left him in a sharp, involuntary exhale, like something had hit him in the chest. "This is," he started. "My will," Marcus confirmed. "I updated it 3 weeks ago." The document stated, in clear legal language, that Hale Manor, the property, the land, and a significant financial trust tied to it, was to pass in full to Elena Reyes and Daniel Reyes Hale upon Marcus's death. But that wasn't the part that had stopped Daniel cold. The part that stopped him was the second page. Marcus had spent the last 8 months quietly, surgically acquiring back the controlling shares of Elena Holdings, not to destroy it. To stabilize it. To protect it from the 3 private equity firms that had been circling it for months, waiting for a moment of exposure. He'd been shielding Daniel's company. Without telling him. Without asking for anything in return. Daniel stood in the dark with the document in his hands, and for the first time in 25 years, the fortress cracked, not at the foundation, but somewhere higher up, somewhere closer to the face. His eyes went bright. He blinked, hard, twice. "Why?" he said. The word barely made it out. "Because it was good," Marcus said simply. "What you built is good. You deserve to see it survive you." A pause. "The way I wish someone had done for me. Early on. Before he stopped. Before I became what I became." He didn't need to say it. Daniel folded the document. His hands were not entirely steady. He stood there in the dark, breathing slowly, the rain-damp air cool against both their faces. "I don't forgive you," Daniel said. "I know," Marcus said. "I don't." Daniel stopped. Started again. "I'm not ready to." "I'm not asking you to be," Marcus said gently. "I'm not here to collect anything. His voice broke, quietly, at the end. "I just wanted you to know that I saw you. What you built. What you both built." He looked out at the dark trees. "I saw you. And I'm sorry it took me this long." The wind moved through the oaks. The porch light from inside cast a long gold rectangle across the wet grass. Daniel said nothing. But he didn't walk away. And when Marcus turned to go back inside, Daniel stayed on that porch, staring out at the darkness, one hand pressed flat against the wooden railing, the document folded against his chest. The camera, if there were a camera, would hold on his face. The way it was working. The war being fought behind those eyes. 25 years of anger and grief and hunger, and underneath all of it, buried so deep he'd forgotten it was there, something that might, with time, with impossible improbable grace, turn into something else. Some men leave. And the families they abandon do not crumble, they rebuild. They grow stronger in the broken places. They build empires of their own. And when the man who left finally returns, the question is never whether he deserves forgiveness. The question is what the people who survived him choose to do with their freedom. Did Daniel deserve to know the truth about Elena Holdings? Should Marcus ever get a second chance? Drop your answer in the comments below, and subscribe with notifications on because part 2 drops soon. The fight for this family is nowhere near finished.